A black billionaire CEO boards a flight quietly, her identity hidden behind humility. But when the pilot confronts her in anger and delivers an unthinkable slap, the cabin falls silent. What no one knows is that she isn't just a billionaire, she's also the chief of police. What happens next will change the fate of everyone on board, leaving the pilot with regret deeper than the skies he flies. The airport was buzzing with its usual rhythm, rolling suitcases clattering across tiles, boarding calls echoing through speakers, and the faint smell of coffee drifting from kiosks along the concourse. At gate 37, passengers shuffled forward, scanning boarding passes with tired expressions. It was just another flight, another ordinary day. But hidden in the line of travelers was a woman whose presence would soon disrupt the ordinary in a way no one on board would forget. Her name was Cassandra Wright. To the public, she was the quiet billionaire who owned one of the largest private security firms in the country, a company that consulted with governments and Fortune 500 corporations alike. To her city, she was something more, the chief of police, sworn in just 2 years prior after decades of decorated service. She had spent her life moving between boardrooms and crime scenes, negotiating billion-dollar deals while wearing a badge that symbolized justice. And yet at that gate, she was just a passenger, dressed in a simple black blazer, her hair tied back, no entourage, no bodyguards. She didn't flaunt her wealth or status. Cassandra had grown up with nothing and never forgot what it felt like to be dismissed, overlooked, underestimated. That humility was her armor, and today, it would be tested in ways she hadn't imagined. As she stepped into the jet bridge, the air shifted. Passengers ahead of her grumbled about delays, one man muttering under his breath about the crew's incompetence. Cassandra ignored it. She was used to tension. Her eyes scanned details without her even trying, the way people moved, how their voices rose and fell, who carried themselves with quiet confidence, and who fidgeted nervously. Years in law enforcement had trained her to read a room before she even walked into it. Inside the aircraft, a flight attendant greeted her with the usual rehearsed smile. Cassandra nodded politely, sliding into her first-class seat. She pulled a slim leather folder from her bag, reviewing notes for the meeting ahead. It wasn't business this time, it was personal. She was flying to finalize a charity project, a youth mentorship program in one of the country's toughest neighborhoods, funded entirely out of her own pocket. The cabin filled slowly. Across from Cassandra sat a businessman barking into his phone. Behind her, a couple argued quietly over who had forgotten the passports. The noise was background static, familiar and ignorable. She adjusted her seatbelt, closed her eyes for a moment, and inhaled deeply, ready for the flight ahead. But then, as the last passengers boarded, a disturbance broke the rhythm. The pilot himself stepped into the cabin, his cap tilted slightly, jaw clenched tight. His name tag read, Captain R. Myers, and his expression carried the weight of irritation that had nothing to do with weather or flight plans. He scanned the rows, his eyes narrowing as they landed on Cassandra. He paused. She met his gaze calmly, unblinking. She had seen that look before, the one that carried a question disguised as authority. What are you doing here? Do you belong? The pilot strode forward, his voice sharp enough to cut through the hum of conversation. Ma'am, he said, stopping in front of Cassandra, I need to see your boarding pass again. She tilted her head, her voice even. It's right here, she said, handing it over without hesitation. He glanced at it, then back at her. First class is full. Are you sure this is where you're supposed to be? A ripple of discomfort passed through the nearby passengers. A man in row 2 glanced up from his newspaper, frowning. Cassandra remained steady. That's my seat, she said simply. But the pilot's irritation flared. His voice rose. I've had enough of people sneaking into places they don't belong. Stand up. Now. Vanessa, the flight attendant from earlier, stepped forward nervously. Captain, she's... But before she could finish, the pilot's hand shot out. The slap echoed like a gunshot in the confined space, sharp and brutal. Cassandra's head snapped to the side, the sting spreading across her cheek. Gasps erupted through the cabin. Someone cried out. Did he just? Another voice shouted. Oh my God! For a moment, silence fell. The captain stood there, chest heaving, his hands still half raised, as though the weight of what he'd done hadn't fully registered. Passengers stared in disbelief, their shock filling the air thicker than turbulence ever could. Cassandra slowly straightened. She touched her cheek lightly, her fingers brushing against the heat of the strike. Her eyes met his, steady, unwavering, like steel forged in fire. When she spoke, her voice was calm, too calm. You just assaulted a passenger, she said. The captain sneered. You don't belong in this seat. Don't play victim with me. That's when it happened. Cassandra reached into her bag, pulled out a slim leather wallet, and flipped it open. The badge gleamed under the cabin lights, unmistakable. Cassandra Wright, she said clearly, her voice carrying across every row. Billionaire CEO. Chief of Police. And the woman you just struck in front of dozens of witnesses. The cabin erupted. Gasps turned into outrage, murmurs into shouts. Phones were raised, cameras recording. Passengers whispered fiercely. She's the chief of police? He hit her? What the hell was he thinking? The captain's face drained of color. His mouth opened, then closed, his authority unraveling in real time. I didn't. But Cassandra stood, her presence filling the aisle. She towered not in height but in command, her years of leadership radiating through every word. You laid hands on me without cause. You abused your power. And now, Captain Myers, you're going to face the consequences. The flight attendants, emboldened now, moved quickly. Vanessa stepped beside Cassandra, her voice firm. Ma'am, we'll make sure this is documented. Security will be waiting when we land. Cassandra nodded but kept her eyes locked on the trembling pilot. No. Security will meet us before we even leave this gate. She pulled out her phone, dialing a number so quickly it was muscle memory. Her voice lowered but carried the weight of command. This is Chief Wright. I need an immediate response team at Gate 37. A uniformed officer has been assaulted by the pilot of Flight 228. Witnesses on board. Detain him before takeoff. The cabin was electric now, the passengers buzzing, whispering, recording every second. The pilot stammered. This is a misunderstanding. I didn't know. That's the point. Cassandra cut in sharply. You didn't know. You saw a black woman in a first-class seat and assumed she didn't belong. And then you crossed the line in a way that can never be undone. Minutes later, security swarmed the aircraft. The captain was escorted off in handcuffs, his protests drowned out by the murmurs of disbelief and satisfaction around him. Cassandra returned to her seat, her composure unshaken, though her cheeks still burned. The passengers applauded quietly, some leaning across the aisle to thank her for standing tall. A man whispered, My daughter needed to see that. Thank you? A woman murmured. You turned a nightmare into justice. Cassandra closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. She hadn't wanted the spotlight, but sometimes it found her anyway. She knew the story would spread, that headlines would twist it into drama, but she also knew one thing, the truth was undeniable. Above the clouds, power had been abused, and justice had answered swiftly. If this story left you stunned, hit the like button so more people can hear it. Share it with someone who believes in accountability, no matter the rank or title. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful true stories that reveal the strength of standing up for what's right.